Hi, welcome to BCGhosttowns.com. My name is John Mitchell, and this trip takes us into the Lardeau area. Now, the Lardeau has got no less than 10 ghost towns, and situated about 50 kilometers southwest of Revelstoke, BC. The area is rugged and beautiful, and not very highly populated. In fact, I would say there's less than 5% of the people that were here during its peak in the rush days. Keep your eyes open when you're driving through. There's wildlife everywhere. I once read an article in a beautiful British Columbia magazine on this house. Why here and why this house, I can't really recall, but it said that it had been moved across this valley by dragging it on skids by horses. There's still furniture inside here. It's like the people just picked up and moved off. Pioneer newspaper man of the time, Colonel Robert T. Lowry, once described this area as, "The residents of this favored district should be happy. No banks, lawyers, highway robbers, policemen, sheriffs, smallpox, or other infectious diseases." A husbandless woman living in Vancouver by the name of Alice Jewett, with a handful of kids, read an article about this boomtown of Trout Lake City and decided that maybe this would be their future. She rented a small place at Trout Lake and started baking. She was an immediate hit with the local miners and amassed a small fortune in a short time. What she did with that fortune was to buy the Windsor Hotel. That was it for the rest of her life. She went to mining shows around Canada and some of the United States. She owned lots of mining operations up in the mountains and would periodically go up there on horseback to check them out. She kept fine linens on the table and silver. And even when the town faded, she was sure the boys were going to come back. She stayed with it her entire life and died in 1955 at the age of 101 years. Her ashes are spread in the mountains overlooking the town, but one thing's nice. The Windsor is still up and running and serving the public, and a real hit with snowmobilers throughout the winter. My wife and I spent a wonderful afternoon having lunch and tea in the old hotel and just soaking in the ambiance. It was a real time travel for us. Supplies came into Trout Lake City from Gerard on the other side of the lake. The stern-wheeler Victoria would ply these waters, pushing a barge. The mines rawhided their ore down in the wintertime for shipment to smelters down across the line. Today, the bones of the stern-wheeler Victoria lie in shallow water not far from the Windsor Hotel.
They are?
That's how you get your gas.
They still are?
The Trout Lake Cemetery was a big surprise. Never before had I seen headstones so well preserved. In wood, 100-year-old headstones. I couldn't believe it. These graveyards tell a lot about a ghost town. One, they'll talk about its size, who lived there, what they did, the population, and the civic pride. Unfortunately, the more you see different ghost town graveyards, the more you realize, there's bound to be a forest fire at some time, and these things disappear. In this case, these headstones were in great condition, and like I said, over 100 years old. Don't think of these places as spooky or scary. After all, when you pass on, you'd like somebody to come and visit your resting place. They're a visual, tangible evidence that the town existed, and in some cases, that's all that's left. Hard to believe that a lot of the mines that were serviced by Trout Lake originated up in the snow line of these mountains.
Another famous character was Andy Daney. He was a rough and ready packer that arrived to the area in around 1895. Started out packing for Broadway Mine, northwest of Ferguson, but eventually formed his own company called the Ferguson Packing and Transfer Outfit. Andy was famous for unbelievable strength, and his horse called Steamboat. This horse was said to have weighed 1,500 pounds and could carry quite the load. The love of his life was Mrs. Jewett's daughter, Evelyn. They were married in 1900. Together, they lived through the boom times in Ferguson and into the bust. In 1960, an author by the name of Bruce Ramsey visited with Evelyn. Evelyn walked him through the remains of downtown Ferguson, taking him to the old Lardeau Hotel, and from its rickety balcony she pointed out the King's Hotel, Barthow's Store, Ferguson Hotel, Balmoral Hotel, and Hume's wonderful Emporium. But unfortunately, they were seen only with her eyes, as it was empty field that she pointed. With a somewhat embarrassed grin, she turned to Bruce and said, "You've come too late."
When the blackbird in the spring on the willow tree, he sat and rocked. I heard him singing orally, 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 made of golden hair. Sunshine came